before the sun rose. In the quiet before dawn, the voice breaks the hush. Everyone knows Ra, the mighty sun god of ancient Egypt, crowned in gilded temples and triumph etched into stone. But few remember who called the sun into being. As the screen unfurls across pale desert sands and ornate columns painted with solar rays, we glimpse a pantheon shaped by light, hierarchy, and ritual worship. Ra stands at its peak, the radiant sovereign, the daily resurrection, the bringer of life. His fame echoes through history and myth. Yet beneath that luminous legacy lies a deeper secret, a god older than the sun, whose voice existed before light itself, a name whispered beside Nubian rivers, murmured in Dogon skies beneath ancient stars. This deity is not Ra's rival, but his foundation, an origin so primordial that it predates the throne of the sun, rooted in resonance rather than brightness. It is a force of silent creation, cosmic breath, divine intelligence calling order from chaos. In this video, we journey beyond the temples and pyramids to uncover that ancient force. We will trace stories across African creation myths, Dogon, Akan, Igbo, Congo, and discover how their creator gods reflect the same cosmic origin later encoded in Atum, known as the pre-enameled Nile. We will explore who, before Ra, articulated the divine logic Egyptians embedded into divine lineage. We will bring voice to a creator who shaped spiritual pattern, rather than framed worship around light alone. Our purpose is not simply academic, it is spiritual, to remember the source, the primordial African creator that shaped Egyptian belief and by extension shaped the very idea of creation itself. By the end, we will understand that Ra did not appear from void. He was called into being by a force older than empire or civilization. And in remembering that force, we remember ourselves, our origin, our identity, and our spiritual inheritance. Let us begin now. In the stillness before dawn, mythology begins, not with form, but with formless breath. This is the silence before light, a cosmic pause where creation lies coiled in potential. Across the African continent, communities have told stories of gods whose first act was to bear existence from endless emptiness. In Dogon cosmology, this force is Ama, an orb of consciousness spinning in the void. Ama conceives the universe through rhythmic motion, shaping matter and spirit in a silent cosmic heartbeat. The Akan of Ghana called that same pulse Nyame, the omnipotent presence that spoke light into being. In Igbo cosmology, Chukwu transcends being yet births reality through Chi, personal spiritual breath, guiding individuals toward unity. In Congo belief, Nzambi stirs the waters of creation, commanding rivers, ancestors, and the human heart into harmonious interplay. Across these cultures, the creative spark emerges well before spoken names. It is a breath, a will, a cosmic intelligence, discerning chaos to become order. These African deities existed not within structured pantheons or sunlit temples, but within the threshold of existence itself. Primordial intelligence before identity. According to Dogon myth, Ama totters between chaos and balance, forging the world by mastering cosmic tension. The Akan believed that before the first drumbeat, Nyame held the chorus in potential form. Igbo stories portray Chukwu as the universal parent who housed creation within cosmic womb before dispatching the divine order, earth, sky, water, destiny. Congo tradition attributes to Nzambi the cosmic circuit, a spiral of power threaded through the living and the dead, carried by ancestors and rivers alike. These mythic traditions show that creation was never accidental. It was intentional, moral, and deeply aligned with human destiny. Though Egyptian theology later elevated Atum and Ra, the concept of a creator enduring beyond sunlight was not unique to Kemet. It was a recurring motif across African creation lore. When Egyptians narrated creation from the waters of none, they echoed the same cosmic template that shaped Akan, Dogon, Igbo, and Congo mythologies. Atum speaks himself into being from liquid depths, just as Chukwu's Chi fills the spiritual void, just as Ama's first crack breaks open ancestral rhythm. the logic of cosmic intelligence, emergence from primordial waters, and spiritual agency uniting chaos into cosmos. This worldview is inherently African and predates solar theology. These traditions share structural parallels: calm waters before invocation, magnetic presence before form, ancestral pattern before visible life. In storytelling traditions, wise elders guard these myths closely. Dogon griots recount Ama's pattern while pointing to crater lakes and star cycles. Akan orators chant Nyame's name in proverbs that describe moral order. Igbo diviners interpret Chukwu's intricate designs through kola note reading. Congo ritualists recall Nzambi and Pungu through dance sequences synchronizing body and breath. These myths are not academic fables. They are lived cosmology. They encode ethics, ecology, justice, destiny, and healing within narrative form. And they remind us that creation stories in Africa always began not when monuments were raised, but when ancestors listened to the still pulse beneath existence. As we trace these myths together, it becomes clear that African cosmology envisioned creation as a conscious act of intention, an original breath that persisted beneath sunlight. This primordial divine intelligence is the root of the god later called Atum, the self-created creator in Egyptian myth. It is the source before Ra ever rose into worship. It is the cosmic language, speech before speech, breath before light, that indigenous Africans wove into ancestral wisdom and lineage. By reclaiming these stories, we see that the idea of a creator before creation was not an isolated innovation of ancient Egypt. It was pan-African architecture of mind, a spiritual infrastructure built long before scribes carved rays on temple walls. In understanding these myths, we touch the rhythm that created the first ripple. We embrace tradition older than dynasties and cosmic voices, wiser than solar kings. And we begin to see that Atum's logic, complete, silent, self-contained, emerges from the same spiritual source that billions of Africans across time have named Ama, Nyame, Chukwu, Nzambi, Mpungu. Creation was not simply an act, it was conversation. And that conversation began long before the sun rose. At the center of ancient Kemet's cosmology stood Atum, the one who spoke himself into existence. Rising from the infinite waters of known, Atum emerges fully formed, self-generated, not born of anything else. His presence marks an unbounded threshold between primordial silence and manifested reality. Unlike later deities who control the sun or seasons, Atum existed before motion and before breath, even before time. He embodies potential, completeness, totality, the uncarved thought that becomes every other form. The myth tells that Atum, existing alone in the dark waters, willed the first divine pair into being: Shu, the god of air and balance, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture and compassion. From within himself, he articulated both masculine and feminine energies. He breathed them into form and sent them out into action. This singular act establishes creation not through violence or division, but through self-reflection, projection, and harmonious relationship. From Shu and Tefnut came Geb, earth, and Nut, sky, and the cosmic lineage unfolded, the world shaped through a cascade of divine emanations. Atum remains the foundation of Egyptian spiritual structure. He is not merely an origin myth, but a theological lens. All creation flows from his self-incursion. He models the principle of unity before multiplicity. Atum is the cosmic center, the seed, the diamond uncut, the awareness behind all manifestation. Yet, as Egyptian religion developed, solar deities like Ra rose to prominence, and Atum's identity became partially eclipsed. Pharaohs, temples, and theology increasingly elevated Ra as the supreme god and solar king, merging his identity with Atum in names like Ra Atum. Over time, Ra's radiance overshadowed Atum's quiet pre-solar sovereignty. Ironically, Atum's foundational status often becomes secondary in modern recounting of Egyptian myth. His legacy remains muted beneath Ra's brilliance, and many popular retellings begin creation with Ra, rather than vectoring back to Atum. Yet the theological architecture persists. The story of creation always begins with self-origination, completeness in silence before sun and sky. Atum is not simply a precursor to Ra. He is the creator whose structures survive through solar theology, even when his name is not spoken. Understanding Atum shifts our view of creation from cosmic spectacle to inner origin. It reframes Egyptian myth around a core metaphysical principle: self-awareness, becoming multiplicity, unity, birthing diversity. Unlike gods who govern over nature, Atum governs the principle of intention itself. He is the affirmation before action, the emptiness preceding speech. His creation of Shu and Tefnut from his own body demonstrates that creation is not accidental or arbitrary, but conscious and relational. This is a pattern mirrored across African creation myths: emergence from a singular source into balanced duality, then into cosmic symphony. Atum's narrative, we see that the creator god of Kemet is spiritual logic that is not limited to Nile Valley theology, but resonates with Pan-African creation traditions. Yet his voice remains almost paradoxically quiet, hidden in layered theology, overshadowed by solar worship. To rediscover Atum is to recall that before Ra's light named the day, before the sun shaped civilization, before temples marked spiritual authority, there was silent completeness, a God who existed in totality and called the cosmos into being from within himself. By granting attention to Atum, we recover a spiritual sensibility that honors mystery before spectacle. We remember that Egypt's spirituality was more than solar veneration. It was cosmic artifice, crafted in resonance, patterned after divine intention. And we ground our exploration not in golden rays, but in the deep, unmoving heart of creation, the God who spoke himself into everything. In remembering him, we reconnect to the silent source beneath the sun, the breath before the first word, the unity behind all divisions. Atum remains the forgotten axis, the creator who shaped the thought that shaped Ra. To see Egyptian spirituality anew is to follow footfalls upstream, from solar worship to the silent presence that initiated it. The silent depths of Nun hold creation's oldest memory. In Egyptian cosmology, Nun is not simply primordial water, it is the cosmic womb from which Atum rose, the uncharted abyss of infinite potential. Nun exists beyond form, beyond time, both ancestor and origin. When the universe was yet unstarred, Nun alone remained. Then from its silent waters, Atum spoke the cosmos into motion. This watery abyss embodied both tranquility and turbulence, the carrier of cosmic order yet untouched by speech, unblemished by creation. Nun stands as the memory that remembers, the stillness preceding blossoming. This symbolism parallels creation lore across Africa. Among the Dogon, ancients speak of Ama stirring in dark mist, shaping worlds from pre-material waves. Akan tradition portrays Nyame's domain as an endless void, from which his voice summoned existence. Igbo cosmology recounts Chukwu's descent into spiritual waters before releasing Chi into the world. In Congo, Nzambi Mpungu is said to dwell in a hidden sea of spirit, flowing through rivers, ancestors, and the living alike. Water across African traditions becomes a vessel not just of physical life, but of ancestral remembrance, a matrix of spiritual potential, connection, and origin. Nun then serves as metaphor and model, hidden power that neither demands worship nor flaunts omnipotence. It surrounds everything, yet asserts nothing. It reflects the sky and absorbs the sun. Atum's emergence from Nun is cosmic homage, the active voice arising from silent substratum. All creation echoes that pattern: energy from stillness, word from silence, form from abyss. Biblical and philosophic frameworks frame creation's beginning as void, but Kemet's myth and broader African cosmology portray the void as living womb, not absence. Nun retains living presence even after creation. Rivers rise and fall, oceans pulse, human memory echoes in dreams, the waters remember. This understanding shifts our spiritual gaze from surface to depth. The visible world, sun, sky, land, is mirrored in some deeper hidden realm. That hidden realm is not dead, it is the ground. Known is the ground, and though deities became personified in solar cults, Ra and Horus, it is from none that creation inherits coherence and cohesion. African theology understands that visible forms are nested within invisible fields of presence. When priests offered water, when rivers were honored, when springs surrounded shrines, they were not honoring resource, they were honoring existence, even at its unmanifest root. The metaphor also casts shadows over power. None does not dominate, it contains. None does not assert boundaries, it enfolds. When Atum conceived creation, he did not wage war. He breathed purpose into potential. It is a model of creative power, wielded with reverence and responsibility, not conquest. And this pattern echoes across ancestral wisdom. Birth is sacred, destiny is divine, and creation is coaction between spirit and matter. To remember none is to remember that power flows from listening, not shouting. It calls us to practice stillness, to ground presence in depth, to cultivate humility beneath ambition. In ritual terms, water was used to consecrate, to cleanse, to connect, to draw a direct line between participants and cosmic memory. Altars held Nile water, spring water, ancestral water, because water carries voice when stone cannot speak. Though none is seldom invoked alone today, its presence endures in the rhythm of ritual. Each libation pours into it, each bath recalls its purity, each chant echoes across its surface, initiates, sends its pulse beneath drumming waves and ancestral breath. For descendants reclaiming their lineage, none is not academic archaeology. It is homecoming to silent presence that still sings beneath our bones. This watery abyss teaches that reality is porous. The divine does not stand apart from creation, it flows through it. The material is spiritual, and spiritual is material. None invites us to understand existence as layered consciousness. Visible light arises from invisible depths. Order springs from chaos. Sound emerges from silence. In honoring none, we honor the root, the foundation before temples, flame before altar, breath before speech. From this vantage, Ra and other gods are not supreme illusions. They are part of a vast spiritual ecosystem rooted in unseen source. None reminds us that the most powerful forces are sometimes those least noticed because they ask nothing but witness. And when we dare remember those waters, we recover not just myth, but memory, ancestral, spiritual, and endless. Beneath the breath of creation lies a coil, a serpent whose darkness constrains possibility. In ancient Kemet, this force is known as Apep or Apophis, the chaos serpent whose vast body locked in the void before the sun rose. A threat to cosmic order, Apep embodies the primordial fear of unbridled chaos, a living shadow meant to swallow light itself. Each dawn, Ra was said to battle Apep aboard his solar boat, cleaving darkness so that they could stand. This myth is no mere legend, it is mythology as worldview, a cosmic arms race between divine architecture and abyssal entropy. Across the African continent, serpent symbolism carries similar weight. Among the Dogon of Mali, a cosmic serpent threads through creation, shaping the world's lines of energy. In Akan myths, giant snakes serve as guardians of cosmic gates, embodying ancestral flow and spiritual transmission. In Congo traditions, the Mbavu serpent curls at the river's source, linking water, ancestor, and transformation in a single symbol. In Yoruba Tooth, Oshun's river spirit is symbolized by serpent motifs, representing regenerative cycles and unpredictable grace. These traditions converge on a shared truth. Chaos is a living force, one that demands ritual respect, spiritual containment, and continuous balance. This serpentine archetype underscores the eternal interplay between Atum, or later Ra, and the force that threatens order. Without the battle between creative light and primordial coil, creation would regress. The serpent is not evil as moral judgment, but chaos as structural threat, a presence that tests the durability of cosmic unity. In Egyptian myth, every sunrise is a victory. Ra's passage through Duat, the underworld, culminating in Apep's defeat, reaffirming the cycle of life. This struggle is mirrored in African rituals that call upon diviners to read the pulse of power and maintain balance between human ambition and cosmic humility. The theme resonates further. Yoruba creation speaks of Olodumare commanding cosmic serpents beneath the surface world. Mande society's tale of river serpents mediating between clans and spirit ancestors. In Igbo cosmology, primordial forces are sometimes depicted as shadowed coils beneath trees or rivers, requiring ritual to access their power without being overwhelmed. Across these mythologies, the serpent is both container and contained. It represents both threat and potential transformation. When ritualized correctly, the serpent becomes a bridge rather than barrier, channeling wisdom that is otherwise dangerous to approach. In the context of Egyptian belief, Apep was more than an antagonist. He was integral to the meaning of order itself. Without chaos, there is no heroism. Without darkness, light would lose its shape. Ra's journey across the sky was powered not merely by solar authority, but by the urgency of overcoming Apep's churn. Pharaohs echoed this mythic duty to uphold Ma'at cosmic balance by wielding moral, political, and spiritual authority in service of order. Priests, masked dancers, and ritualists kept that metaphor alive through annual rites, festival displays, and secret ceremonies meant to reenact the defeat of chaos and ensure cosmic continuity. When we explore serpent symbolism in African creation stories and Kemet's cosmology, we see that creation is not static architecture, it is dynamic negotiation. It is a negotiation precisely between creative order and chaotic absence, between sunlight and silent threat. The serpent reminds us that spiritual knowledge must walk the edges. Boundaries need caretakers. Ritual is not merely homage, it is containment, and creation is not unilateral, but bilateral interplay between center and fringe, sun and shadow, word and coil. This dual dynamic also informs initiation, lineage, and healing traditions. In Nigerian initiation rites, masked dances representing ancestral serpents perform dramatic struggles, symbolizing spiritual realignment. In Benin and Cameroon, forest rituals trace serpent paths through hidden passages to reconcile cosmic rifts. These ceremonies echo the ancient myth of Ra's nightly battle, translating cosmic drama into communal recalibration. In understanding the serpent as coiled darkness, we restore creation's full architecture, not as linear triumph, but as spiraled negotiation. It teaches that cosmic order depends on constant vigilance. Safety is structured by ritual. Light is possible because chaos exists. Divine speech required a threat to speak into. Each morning from sunrise to sunset is an ongoing statement. Creation is not permanent, it is chosen again. By learning how African cultures and Egyptian cosmology both revered and contained the serpent, we recognize the serpent as a metaphysical teacher. Apep is not ignorance to be destroyed, but ignorance to be acknowledged and surpassed. The serpent beneath the cosmos beckons ritual humility, metaphysical courage, and ongoing remembrance that creation is fragile, responsibility infinite, and balance never passive. Thus, the coil beneath creation is not disappearance, it is presence. Chaos is alive, but so is consciousness. And when priests or diviners call the divine, they do not deny the serpent, they bind it. In doing so, they honor the cosmic pact that gave birth to light, breath, and song. The battle between Atum or Ra and Apep remains a myth, not of conflict alone, but of covenant. We were not given creation without being called to uphold it. The ascent of Ra as the central deity in ancient Egypt marks a profound shift, not only in religion, but in how power, authority, and divinity were understood. Initially, Atum reigned as the silent sovereign who spoke creation into existence from the waters of none, a self-generated god holding cosmic potential in absolute integrity. Yet as dynasties solidified and state power centralized, Ra emerged as the luminous sun god, symbolizing royal authority, life's renewal, and visible divinity. Ra's rise was not a mythic accident, but a calculated shift in spiritual architecture. The sun carried legitimacy, permanence, and power in public ceremonies, statecraft, and temple visitation. Over centuries, Ra's prominence eclipsed Atum's older identity. It was not enough to worship Ra alone. Egyptian theology merged the two through composite naming, Ra-Atum. In temple inscriptions and theological texts, Atum's primordial role became a predecessor rather than a separate force. Ra was said to originate from Atum's body, yet he carried divergent symbolism: solar radiance, daily rebirth, pharaonic kingship. The solar code benefited from this consolidation. Pharaohs could identify themselves with Ra's consistent arc across sky, weaving political authority into divine continuity. The key mythic message became solar power incarnate, that kingship derived from the sun and eclipsed older names. Priestly classes played a crucial role in elevating Ra. Temples across Heliopolis, Thebes, and Memphis declared Ra's supremacy through ritual adjustments, priesthood restructuring, and theological reinterpretation. Atum's hidden force could align with Ra's identity, but to worship Atum alone risked theological redundancy under the dominance of solar cults. As centralized priesthoods aligned with pharaonic rule, Ra's prominence grew in public worship. Festivals like the Feast of the Valley and Opet Festival, processional cults, and chronicles of divine kingship. The metaphor of sunlight weaving through land and elder myths reinforced state ideology. Ra crowned the king and ordered cosmic balance. This shift reflects more than religious evolution. It signifies a shift from abstract creator to solar monarch. Atum, the god of potential and completeness, served cosmic logic. Ra served a structured, visible world. The sun-lit ceremonies elevated mosques and carved obelisks and became political signifier. The merging of Atum's invisibility with Ra's visibility gave Egypt a theology that served both mystery and authority. In doing so, solar religion overshadowed spiritual memory of deeper origin. Atum persisted only in mythic genealogy or temple footnotes. Popular memory faded over time. Art shows Ra enthroned in a solar barks, worshipped through hymns and hymnal repetition. Atum's temple rooms were tucked behind labyrinths, visited only by initiates in hidden sanctuaries. Ra dominated art, architecture, prayer, songs, whereas Atum became more implicit. Texts like the Book of the Dead preserved him, but didn't exalt him. Ra supplied light to civilization. Atum supplied silence before it all began. Under modern narrations, Ra became the default creator, with Atum erased or relegated despite his foundational role in earlier creation myth. Yet Atum's spirit never died. He remained at the edge of theology, a philosophical model of unity before multiplicity. Philosophers and initiate lineages preserved his verses. Temple priests recited him in secret liturgies, and in dynastic theology, Ra himself was often called maker of the two lands, echoing Atum's inclusive sovereignty. This composite identity, Ra-Atum, serves as theological code: light born from silence, destiny anchored in depth, empire built upon ancient dreaming. When we frame this evolution as when the sun became king, we see not just divine hierarchy, but strategic imagination. Solar kingship demanded visibility. The sun demanded public ministry. Ra demanded universal recognition. Atum represented intimacy, interiority, the implicit code that subsequent theology replaced with sunlight. The transition marks a historic movement from envisioning gods as shapeless creators to coronating them as political sovereigns. The transition mirrored in pharaonic grandeur, administrative centralization, and temple-centric economy. By understanding this shift, we reclaim a deeper structure of meaning, creation rooted in cosmic intention, later reframed through solar spectacle. We recognize that Ra's prominence was less an innovation than a consolidation of spiritual logic for governance. We also uncover that Atum's eclipse was not fatal, merely contextual. It remains the underpinning force of Egyptian spiritual design, even if modern accounts default to Ra's dominion. Atum as acoustic origin, Ra as political archetype, and the fusion in Ra-Atum as cosmic compromise. When Ra became king, he carried Atum's breath in his own being. Across Africa's river valleys and plateaus, hidden echoes of Atum and Non appear in the stories and rituals of Nubia, Sudan, Ghana, and Nigeria, narratives that affirm a shared spiritual architecture that extends beyond Egypt. In ancient Nubian cosmology, the creators of the world whisper in the names of divine kings, whose coronation rituals resemble the emergence of Atum from the cosmic waters. In Sudanese oral tales, ancestral forces are said to have formed land from celestial mud, a motif strikingly similar to Atum's self-originating act. Even as Egypt is credited historically with innovation, these neighboring cosmologies suggest a deeper inheritance, a constellation of belief that predates the pharaohs. Consider the Dogon people of Mali, whose deity Ama emerges from silent abyss and constructs life through calibrated cosmic circuitry. Ama's activities mirror Atum's movement from chaos into order, shaping dimensions through intent. In Akan cosmology, Nyame is the omnipresent but ineffable creator whose breath animates existence, a mirror of none's hold on silent possibility. In Igbo tradition, Chukwu is the supreme intelligence dwelling above yet birthing chi and destiny into individual lives. As with Atum, creation is not imposed but emanated. Each of these traditions places creation within metaphysical authority rather than solar spectacle, signaling that Egyptian mythology was not an isolated invention but part of a widespread philosophical design. When Dogon griots chant about Ama sketching spirals before forming galaxies, or when Akan elders recite proverbs about Nyame's shadow beneath creation, or Igbo diviners open kola nuts, invoking Chukwu's will, those moments reveal spiritual logic aligned deeply with the story of Atum. This is not coincidence, it is resonant lineage. These widespread myths suggest that solar theology adapted an existing template, a recognition of consciousness preceding cosmos, intention shaping existence, ancestral mind, weaving belonging. Further evidence emerges in ritual signs. Nsibidi symbols in southeastern Nigeria and Cameroon encode concepts of silence, unmanifest presence, and emergence, all themes central to Non and Atum. Ancient rock art in Sudan reflects patterns of spirals and concentric circles tied to Nubian creation memory. Proverbs in Akan languages about the first word before the world spoke echo Atum's self-speech. These cultural artifacts carry semantic resonance with cosmic creation, suggesting that African oral traditions preserved versions of the primordial narrative, even when written hieroglyph remained localized. This broader spiritual map challenges the notion that Egypt's creator gods were autonomous invention. Instead, it reframes Egypt as a civilization that inherited, refined, and monumentalized a continental spiritual code. In the same way that Akan knew Nyame and Dogon prayed to Ama, Egyptians knew Atum. The difference lies not in originality, but in expression. Egypt etched its creator into temple walls, while other communities encoded theirs into proverbs, songs, and codified chants. For spiritual seekers reclaiming lineage, this suggests that the god of origin is not confined to Egyptian ruins, but alive in oral corridors across Africa. Those pondering Ama, Nyame, Chukwu, Nzambi, Mpungu, or even less familiar oral figures, are touching the same divine principle that Egyptians named Atum. This realization opens spiritual democracy. Origin is not tied to empire, but to memory. The idea that African creation myth emanates from multiplicity of sources reinforces unity across region, culture, and sect. This understanding also reframes religious history. Instead of viewing Egyptian theology as exporting creation myth to Africa, we can see it as an expression of a spiritual foundation shared across sources. As the river flows from plateau to delta, so did the idea of a creator emerge across continents, collecting tributaries, consolidating in Memphis, Heliopolis, Kerma, Thebes. Pharaohs may have raised monuments, but the myth rose in hearts long before pyramids existed. It unlocks deeper meaning when we see that Ra's solar ascendancy was built upon an older and broader origin narrative, one shared across watersheds and generations. It presses us to recognize that hearing Atum in Egyptian ritual echoes hearing Ama in Dogon silence, Nyame in Akan proverbs, Chukwu in Igbo chants. All these are voices of creation breathing in different tongues from the same ancestral breath. Ultimately, this insight invites a spiritual shift. It urges us to stop viewing African cosmology as fragmented across cultures and to begin seeing it as folded into an integrated map of divine thought. Africa did not stitch itself to Egyptian theology after the fact. It helped weave the original design. Egypt refined it, named it, built temples to it. The rest of us carried it in drum, chant, and story. In recognizing this continuum, we reclaim not just myth but identity. We accept that creation's first voice spoke across rivers, mountains, and cultures before song or script. And when we remember that, we remember who we are, not as recipients of a legacy, but participants in it. To say Atum is to say Ama, to say Nyame is to speak Chukwu's echo. We begin seeing that Africa did not invent creation myths in Egypt, but ignited it across the continent, and Egypt simply named the flame. In the vast panorama of ancient spirituality, there exists a shadowed figure who has often gone unrecognized, the primordial creator, the divine architect who preceded Ra's golden rise. Why was this creator so readily forgotten? The answer lies in the weight of silence, how colossal spiritual presences can be obscured when history prefers kings and symbols over cosmic origin. During colonial rule, narratives were shaped by power, not nuance. European scholars and missionaries elevated Ra, the sun god, because he fit the logic of visibility and control. Sun worship, after all, aligned easily with structures of governance and imagery of domination. The colonial worldview reframed Egyptian religion not as fertile cosmology, but as exotic spectacle. They separated Egypt from its African context, positioning Ra as the apex of solar theology, while erasing deeper creator traditions rooted in Nubian, Akan, Igbo, and Dogon cosmologies. In schools and museums, Egypt was portrayed as a culture uniquely exceptional, detached from African origins. Ra became the symbol of ancient authority. Atum, creation's silent architect, was demoted to footnote. Little was said about Nun, the abyss of cosmic memory, or the overlapping figures like Ama, Nyame, and Chukwu, who embodied source rather than spectacle. The narrative of creation was reframed as media-friendly and tangible. Sun, fertility, war gods thrived. Abstract silent creators did not or were assumed not to exist anywhere else. Modern religion and scholarship continue this trend. It is easier to market Ra or Isis than to communicate the idea of self-origination, potential before pattern. Abstract cosmic forces require interpretation and depth. They challenge literalism and straightforward worship. They require introspection. They don't lend themselves to statues and festivals in the same way. Atum's identity as self-created totality is difficult to grasp without slow teaching or translation. He was too vast, too philosophical, too subtle for mainstream pedagogy, which favors deities with clear external identity. Yet the omission wasn't because this creator was weak. In spiritual terms, he was the ground of power itself, an unexamined abyss that carries everything. But he was forgotten because historical systems preferred gods they could touch, tax, and harness. A cosmic creator rooted in silence threatened narratives of conquest and hierarchy. He couldn't be appropriated. He simply was. Colonial storylines erased him not through force, but through neglect. This erasure extends into popular culture today. Films and documentaries often begin with Ra framing creation against solar drama. Scripts rarely pause to consider that creation might begin in cosmic silence, not sunlight. Religious revivals and neo-pagan interpretations celebrate fertility, war, or love gods more easily than abstract creator intelligence. Atum becomes a variant of Ra rather than a distinct principle. Creation is retold as solar drama, not divine abstraction. But this silence is itself a clue. It signals the presence of something too elemental to be spoken loud. In traditions across Africa, whispers of a primordial designer persist in proverbs and lullabies. The Dogon sing of Ama shaping in darkness. Akan elders speak of Nyame's cosmic voice before the first word. Igbo diviners acknowledge Chukwu's chi as the original gesture of being. These voices remain quieter in modern life, but not extinguished. The vastness of that creator requires depth to recall him. It demands ritual, ancestral memory, and a philosophical humility, qualities not suited to mass consumption. He was expendable to historians because he cannot be commodified. Yet to recall Atum is to reclaim African spiritual architecture at its root. It is to recover a genealogy of cosmic intelligence that predates Egyptians, Hippocrates, or pyramids. The silence of the source is not empty, it is pregnant. And when we speak that silence again, we begin to unforget something essential. Creation was not built by sunlight alone, but by silence. The priest who named creation did not carve light out of nothing. He breathed it from depth. That is the divine truth overshadowed by solar kingship. But even eclipsed, the Creator remains. He awaits remembrance. When we uncover this narrative, we not only correct miswritten history, we expand spiritual imagination. We reclaim the God who created without spectacle and ordered without display. We settle at the cosmic threshold where creation began, not with a chisel, but with intention. And in doing so, we honor memory, lineage, and ancestral breath. The God who called creation into being, silent, uncreated, ancient, waited through centuries of eclipse. But now in this generation, the primordial creator is reclaiming presence. He is returning, not through spectacle, but through interior reawakening. Across the continent and the diaspora, spiritual seekers are asking deeper questions. What came before light? Who shaped the cosmos in silence? Why does creation still stir beneath our bones? Such questions signal something new. A cosmic memory reactivating. In communities from Accra to Dakar, Lagos to New York, Akan elders, Igbo diviners, Dogon griots, and Congo ritualists describe a resurgence of ancestral presence. In hushed conversations, people speak of dreams where a silent creator is encountered, or visions in which cosmic patterns appear before sun or star. Word is spreading. Atum's silence returns, not as old myth, but as ancestral frequency, calling the body back into lineage. This is not revivalism in headline form. It is reactivation of a spiritual template older than empire. Digital platforms are lighting the flame. Podcasts explore the unmapped source. Interviews revisit creation myth beyond Ra. Short films dramatize the first breath before solar hierarchy. Temple schools teaching Yoruba, Vodun, Dogon cosmology. Now open courses on Ama and Atum, the original creators. Writers and theologians analyze Akan, Igbo, Congo myths alongside Kemetite theology, asserting that Egyptians did not invent creation myth, they inherited it. Across online altars and hidden terreros, the language of uttering false vehicles of order is creeping back in. This reawakening is neither Christian revival nor New Age trend. It is spiritual, not sectarian. People are not converting, they are remembering. They hear ancestral names whispered in kola nut readings, see patterns in vivid designs, sense vibrations in drum codes that predate solar devotion. Homes are quietly being reconsecrated. Water bowls placed before sunrise is in honor of noon. Incense lit at dusk for Ama. Salt and honey offered to Chukwu. Even in urban apartments, small altars reappear, recording the return of remembrance hidden in plain sight. Communities also record this return in ceremonial rhythm. Festivals once dedicated exclusively to Orishas now begin with acknowledgements of Atum or Ama. Initiation rituals begin with the silent invocation of unnamed creative force. Prayers conclude by asking that we remember the source before calling upon deities. This pattern underscores a rediscovery. Every deity functions within the matrix of primordial intention. Scientists and psychologists studying African epistemology are discovering that recounting creation myths from inner African traditions leads to increased cohesion, mental clarity, and ecological connection. Students taught first about Atum and Ama in secondary schools report a stronger sense of identity, deeper philosophical grounding, and a resurgence of respect for ancestral ecosystems. It is as though remembering the silent creator realigns modern fragmented consciousness with perennial purpose. Often this return unfolds in personal spiritual awakening. Seekers recount internal crises resolved when voice unfolded, silence, hearing a single word in dream, signaling the God who waited. For many, the return is not doctrinal, it is transformative. They describe feeling a presence beneath the words they chant, as though they remember before they speak. They speak of spiritual taxonomy shifting from external idols to interior impulse. They learn to recognize patterns in nature, rippling waters, sunrise, symbolic cycles, as resonant reflections of the original template. The return of this lost creator restores balance to identity. When communities neglect foundational principle, they become prone to spectacle and superficiality. When sunlight becomes dominant over silence, spiritual logic loses its root. Remembering Atum or Ama realigns spiritual architecture. Exoteric worship integrates with esoteric foundation. Visible gods emerge from invisible root. Before the sun rose, someone opened the heavens. In the grand sweeps of Egyptian mythology, Ra emerges as the sun god, sovereign of skies and symbol of radiant kingship. But creation's first act occurred long before his daybreak. Someone spoke the cosmos into existence from silence before light carved, meaning that someone is Atum, rising from the abyss of known, the silent waters bearing potential. He's the primordial voice, the uncarved thought, the origin before title or throne. In that moment, Atum uttered Shu and Tef note into being, birthing air and moisture and setting into motion the unfolding tapestry of divine generations. His cosmic intention incarnate, completeness before division, unity before multiplicity, and known that endless watery abyss is not empty. It is the vast reservoir of ancestral memory and creative potential. It holds all that emerges, yet insists on depth before form, yet solar ascendance eclipsed this quiet creator. As dynasties rose, temples consecrated the sun god, priests composed hymns praising light's dominion, and history blinked towards solar spectacle. Atum's foundational presence dimmed beneath Ra's brilliance, even though Ra's authority rested on Atum's silent reach. Without the source, sunlight is rootless. This eclipse was not accident, but evolution. Political legitimacy aligned with solar mythology. Ritual spectacles elevated visible divinity. The young god supplanted the ancient principle. The light became visible, but the depth remained concealed. If we forget Atum, we forget the root beneath the ray. And when the root is abandoned, the tree withers. Yet Atum was never truly forgotten. He waited quiet beneath temple walls in oral traditions across Africa, in Dogon, Akan, Igbo, Congo myths echoing the same cosmic template. He awaited those who remember, not by sunbeam but by breath, not by monument but by memory. So let this reflection root in us. Powerful though Ra may be, the one who opened the heavens, the source of sun and sky, bears the original voice. And if we praise light without encountering depth, our worship becomes hollow. We must remember the origin, not only the outcome. May we reclaim that memory, breathe into that source, walk in alignment with cosmic intention. Let us pray. O Atum, who spoke creation from silence, guide our breath into wisdom deeper than dazzle. O Nun, endless waters of potential, hold our hearts in stillness before we move. May ancestral knowledge stir in our bones. May our visions honor the unseen, and may our breaths remember the unspoken word that shaped existence. Thank you, beloved viewer, for journeying toward the source. Your presence honors the ancient voice. May your path be blessed by the breath before the light, the creator before the crown. To remember the creator is to remember ourselves. The true God of Africa was never forgotten, only waiting for those who would dare remember.